Hey Brandy, I'm in movie making mode, so I figured it'd be easier for me to just make you a little movie for this. So you're using the Sekonic 358, perfect. And you're probably not doing as bad on this assignment as you think you are. So first, relax. It's okay. I apologize for not putting up more clarifying notes for this assignment. I read things and they seem clear to me, but I really need to put myself in somebody else's head and make sure that they seem clear on a broad scale, because it seems like a lot of people are struggling with the basic requisites for this assignment. So let me clarify. You'll be shooting 40 images total. You will be shooting 20 total images of a broad scene, like just a landscape. Most of your subject matter is fairly far away from you, say like 60 feet or more. And then you'll be shooting a second set of images, 20 again, of stuff closer to you. Probably stuff that's in that scene that you just shot that was far away, but you're going to move your body up close to that subject matter, trees, bushes, gnomes, whatever, and you're going to get 20 shots of that. Okay, now back to the broad scene, the first set of 20 shots. For each frame that you set up, every time you set up a composition in your viewfinder that you intend to photograph, you will take 2 different meter readings and you will use those readings for 2 different photos of that same frame. One time you will use your meter in incident mode, and one time you will use it in reflective mode. You will take both shots with whatever meter readings you get from incident mode and whatever meter readings you get from reflective mode. Hopefully that all makes sense so far. You're going to repeat that for every shot in this whole 20-shot series. So ultimately, you have 10 compositions in this first 20-shot series. You have 10 compositions of a landscape that's far away, but you're shooting it 2 different times. One with the exposure settings that you obtained through incident reading, and one with the exposure settings you obtained through reflective reading. Okay, so in incident mode, it doesn't matter if you're shooting if you put it on aperture or shutter or EV. It really doesn't matter. I like aperture priority because aesthetically I tend to prioritize my aperture over all other settings, especially when I'm shooting a landscape, because maybe I want a deep or maybe I want a narrow depth of field, so I want to prioritize my aperture. So I just want to set my camera at aperture and have the meter figure out all the rest of the gunk for me. So choose an aperture, set your camera to it, choose an aperture on your meter, set it, and then shoot in, just use, just use an aperture priority. Honestly, I think it's helpful, but that's how I think. Other people think differently. All right, so you're in incident mode. That means the Lumisphere is on, and it's in the up position. Now, go stand in your scene, leave your camera on its tripod, walk away from it, go stand in your scene in what you think is about an average quality of light, so an average brightness. Now, if it's a bright sunny day and you've got deep shade in some areas and bright sun in other areas, you're going to need to take 2 readings. You're going to need to take 1 reading in shade and 1 reading in bright sun, and you're going to have to come up with an average between those readings, and that's what you'll shoot in for incident. However, if you can find an area that you feel is about an average quality of light, an average lightness and darkness between the whole scene, just take your incident meter reading right there. Stand in that spot with your Lumisphere up and out, and have the Lumisphere of your meter pointing back towards your camera's lens. Take a meter reading. Use those settings on your camera. And if you do it that way, and you're shooting a scene that's all basically the same, but you are changing your point of view between each composition, you can probably just use those readings for every shot in the 10-shot series. However, you're going to want to make sure that you also meter for each shot in reflective mode. And I'm pretty sure that means taking the Lumisphere off, and then pointing wherever the Lumisphere was on your meter toward the thing that you're trying to meter, something out there in the world that you're metering. You will take a meter reading in reflective mode, probably in aperture priority, and you will transfer those settings to your camera and you will shoot. Now remember, in reflective mode, your meter is giving you exposure settings that will yield a medium gray out of whatever it is that you're pointing it at. So if you point it at something bright like the sky, you're going to end up having a really underexposed image. If you point it at something very dark like, say, wet bark, you're going to have an overexposed image. So keep that in mind. And that's okay if that happens. That's just what happens. The point of this assignment is for you guys to figure out that you get better readings, you get more accurate readings in incident. I'm just giving it away. That's the point. Okay, so that's your first 20 shots. Broad landscape. Make sure you take 2 different shots of each composition that you set up, 1 using the incident meter reading settings, and 1 using the reflective meter reading settings. Okay, and now, with probably a different focal length lens, you go into your landscape that you just took broad landscape shots of and shoot close-up subject matter, just things close up, and just repeat the same sort of process with your meter. You know, shoot it once with incident meter reading settings and once with reflective meter reading settings. I hope that makes sense. I know it can be really confusing to get out here for the first time with this brand new light meter and you're like, seriously? I already have a light meter in my camera? Why do I need another one? And it's because reflective light meters are easily fooled. That's why. That handheld light meter is just going to do a better job, especially when you get into the studio and you start using your continuous lights and then strobe lights after that. It's just a much, much, much better job. And then also, with the handheld light meter, what we'll move into later in the term is creating light ratios. And you just can't do that very well with a reflective meter that's built into your camera. You really need a handheld light meter for that. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, thank you, Brandy.